The sun sure looks bright this morning, doesn't it? You're an unemployed student that doesn't have any scheduled classes right now. So you decide that you want to go take a light jog on the block during rush hour, the time that everyone is bustling to get to work on time. You throw on your favorite New Balances, plug in your AirPods, grab your keys, and you're ready to get your jog on. Couple steps in, doesn't seem too bad. So you decide that you want to pick up the pace a little bit, jogging and jogging and jogging until the air starts to get a little heavy. You think it's your lungs running out of breath, when really it's the air around you that feels like some invisible guy is pressing down on your shoulders. To your left, the inpatient vehicles driving bumper to bumper keep at their honking intakes and continue to churn up their engines, simultaneously pumping into the air some pretty high levels of pollutants such as nitrogen oxide and carbon dioxide. Keep in mind that you're a relatively healthy person, and how far you've run with the pace you're going at far suits below what you're usually capable of, and yet you struggle to breathe. Caught on yet? It isn't your lungs that are failing to comply with those left-beam legs of yours. It's those cars right next to you that are giving you a hard time catching your breath. Climate change is a well-known issue going on in our own very own little world right now. And as the years zip by, it only continues to grow worse and worse thanks to mankind. There are so many factors that contribute to the overall catastrophe of climate change. One of the very leading causes and factors that is ever growing effect being car emissions. Cars are something that we are extremely familiar with. Hell, they're all around us. The hell we get to and from work, school, practice, a fancy date with this new Brazilian we just met, or to get to family. Cars are used everywhere, at every corner of the earth, and each one of these gas-powered vehicles harm the environment every single day, at every start of the ignition. We could talk about a whole separate problem with how you feed your car with gasoline and a harmful chemical such as benzene that enter your body every time you pay $40 on pump 5 at a gas station, but that's for another day. Cars running on gas have continuously been emitting greenhouse gases that are effectively and negatively contributing to climate change. Primarily examples of these gases being methane and nitrous oxide, toxic pollutants that pour into our atmosphere whenever our vehicles burn fossil fuels. These pollutants destroy the overall air quality around us and develop smog that can prove harmful to everyday people. The more pollutants that cough out of your exhaust pipes, the more likely that people all around the world are to contract respiratory problems and diseases such as asthma. From a personal perspective, I am far too familiar with the unfortunate world of asthma, as I am an asthmatic myself. But I didn't just inherit this disease from genetics. My family's history of asthma ran extremely dry up until 2007, the year I was born, and when my family found out that I had been diagnosed with asthma. Between 1990 and 2005, CO2 equivalent emissions in the city of Philadelphia, the city I was born in, had drastically increased by over 100 pounds per megawatt hour, staying fairly consistent up until 2010, which coincidentally falls in line with the year of my birth. My father had explained to me many years later that no one in my family had a history of asthma besides me due to environmental factors and what the doctor said were dramatic intakes of emissions in the air. Whether location being the main factor of my diagnosis of asthma or not, it is still incredibly important to look into that huge spike of greenhouse gas emissions from vehicles that occurred in Philadelphia and what the city has been looking like ever since. Car emissions are a leading factor in the world of climate change due to many reasons. One of the reasons being that when those harmful greenhouse gases are released into the atmosphere, they begin to accumulate and trap heat in the air, which evidently doesn't allow heat to escape back into the atmosphere, causing global temperatures to rise. While these pollutants continue to trap heat, weather conditions will only continue to worsen, and they could soon grow to become very extreme and aggressive, changes in the season additionally being altered. We're not just altering our own lives with the things coming out of these man-made machines, we're affecting wildlife and the natural environment altogether. When one suffers, we all suffer. The city of Philadelphia is a major contributor to the pollution in the air and the overall world of climate change in a variety of ways due to car emissions, which may explain the huge spike of car emissions we saw back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Due to Philadelphia having ridiculous amounts of VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, CO2, and other greenhouse gases in the air, residents who lived in the city were directly affected by these impacts, particularly through respiratory issues such as asthma. Statistics from more fairly recent studies claim to show that in 2019, emissions that came from transportation in Philadelphia were responsible for over 25% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions. Upticks in traffic and a rising number of vehicles such as trucks, cars, and buses persisted in emitting harmful pollutants, causing poor air quality in local neighborhoods, directly impacting vulnerable populations, made conditions such as asthma worse, especially among children. It is also important to note that since 2006, Philadelphia has seen a 12% increase in transportation emissions, directly impacting residents of the city's abilities to live sustainable lives. As pollution continues to increase, we will never be able to find a sustainable way to improve our air quality, find better modes of transportation, and reduce carbon footprints in the city. If Philadelphia and its residents ever want to see a cleaner and more sustainable city, it will have to reduce car emissions and transition to more sustainable modes of transportation. In my attempt to offer solutions to my very own city of Philadelphia's car emissions and contribution to climate change issues, I would pitch a variety of ideas, starting with strongly promoting the need for electric cars and vehicles more to reduce emissions, and increase the amount of bike lanes the city has to offer, expanding how much access and availability there is to public transit, and an increase in carpooling. All of these options will significantly reduce how much greenhouse gases are pumped into the air and improve the overall air quality of the city. I do believe that if Philadelphia truly wants to fulfill their goal of net zero emissions by the year 2050, they will have to implement a majority of these ideas previously discussed. So remember, love your environment the way you want to live in a clean and sustainable world.